All right, I want to welcome the viewers who are watching us today, and thank them for taking some time to be here. Hopefully, this interview will answer some questions that they may have. So, I am Hector Espinosa, and I am sitting today. We're chatting with Xioma Diaz, who has a background and expertise in physical therapy, but for the past few years, she has been a co-owner, co-founder with her husband Eric, with Peacock Care Homes. So why don't we just start with learning a little bit about you and your background as a PT and how you got started.
Sure. Thank you for having me here. And yeah, to give you a little bit of background about me, I have been a physical therapist for about 30 plus years, working here in Northern Colorado. I have worked in a lot of the larger communities, assisted livings, memory cares, working with the Alzheimer units, pretty much all through Northern Colorado. It has been my career. It's been my passion. Just really enjoy working with that group of individuals.
And so how long ago was it that you decided to move into owning your own assisted living?
Let's see. I want to say it was probably about 5 years ago, is when we actually first got into looking at these residential homes. And I'll kind of give you a little bit about what was happening. While working in these larger communities, I was noticing that a lot of the folks were struggling. They were having a lot more behaviors, having some difficulties. It seemed like some of the folks were like falling through the cracks with their just basic cares. It was really kind of disheartening, because other folks were doing fine, but there was this group that just was not thriving well. That kind of got me thinking about things, and when we had the opportunity to purchase a smaller residential home and kind of renovate it for small, like 8 to 10 residents, we took it. And really glad we did, because it really has, I've realized that it has helped a whole group of individuals that were not thriving in these larger communities.
So would you say, I mean, knowing that, because I know a lot of people go back and forth about, why a small home versus a facility? What would you say, like, what do you look for in a family when they approach you to know whether their loved one would thrive more in a smaller home versus a larger community? Because I have to assume it's not a one size fits all. It's like some people are going to thrive better in a larger facility, whereas some would thrive better in a small home. So what do you look for in that family, in that person, to know whether it's a good fit for them, if they're going to do their best there?
Yeah, that's a good question. They're in the larger communities. I first want to say the larger communities are great, and they're beautiful. There's a lot of people in there. There's a lot of socialization, which I think a lot of folks at some point in their life, they really enjoy that and they need that. I believe that there come some people, whether it be that they have some early onset dementia or just as the aging process goes on, there's some folks that need a little bit more reassurance, a little bit more one-on-one. And when they don't have that is when we start to see the struggle and the behaviors. People, it's not just about, going to these different events that the larger communities have. They'll have, different, bingo and different events, a lot of people to socialize, a lot of, there's a lot of different staff, so you're getting all these different new faces. That works for some, but for others, that actually causes stress. I've noticed that our residents in our homes, they're needing that daily, sometimes multiple times a day, just that reassurance that they know us, that they're safe, that we're not going to go anywhere. They're familiar with our staff, with the residents around them. It's a small group, so the faces don't change as much, and that gives them that security, that feeling of being safe. It's more of a typical home versus like a resort type of feel. To the community. Right. And as I said, some people do fine in the larger communities and enjoy it, but there comes a time that either some of those changes happen or some personalities just don't do as well in that. And so I always try to talk with family members and explain that to them so that they can kind of look back and make that decision for their loved one as to where would be a better fit.
So would you say, I'm just curious, do larger facilities and smaller residential homes, do they see each other as competition, or do they work together? Like, let's say you do bring someone in your home, but you realize over time that this person might actually do better with more socialization in a larger facility, or vice versa. If the larger facility realizes that one of the residents might actually thrive better in a smaller residential home type setting, do you guys talk and communicate that and like help the families work through that transition, or is it more like, no, we don't deal with each other kind of thing?
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because it actually, we should work together. And I think most realize that it's not, one is not a good fit for all. I mean, different people, we're all different, we're all individuals, we all come from different backgrounds, different experiences. So I do find that even now, we work with the larger communities. To be quite honest, we've even had folks that come from the larger memory care units and come to our assisted livings, and they do just fine in assisted living versus a secure memory care. Again, because they have that one-on-one on a daily basis. They have that reassurance that someone's there. They don't feel the need to like try to find someone, or that desperation that they're alone, or that they need to find where they're feeling safe or secure. So I think the larger communities, the staff that I've worked with there, they recognize that it's not a fit for everyone. So I think we can all work together to find that perfect spot that works, for each individual.
I mean, for me personally, that's really nice to hear, because I think I would assume a lot of families have that fear that, once their loved one's in there, they don't really know what's happening behind closed doors, and how do we really know that people care, that they're paying attention, that they have the best interest of the residents, at heart.
And once your loved one is not able to communicate that as well to you anymore, whether it be because their dementia has started to advance, or just the aging process, we get forgetful. You worry about what's happening when you're not there, and so having a smaller, like I said, a smaller home like ours, it's more of a family feel, and everybody gets to know everybody. It is truly a family feel. It's not at a resort. The larger communities, you go in, you're not sure which caregiver was there, how long ago, and you don't, and they're not even there for you to talk to, and so you can see how they did in the shift before, earlier in the day. Nobody's there to tell you. And our communities, that's the difference. We have the time, because we're smaller, to spend, to sit with folks, to get to know them, sometimes they just want to sit by us, and we have that time because we're small enough that we can do that. Just like a normal family home, you sit with someone and watch TV, or you sit while they're cooking, or whatever it might be. That is the feel that our homes have, and it really, I think, can make the difference for those folks that need that need that security, and want to just feel like they're cared for, that they're loved.
What would you say when you meet a new family? What are the typical fears or initial questions that you find most often that they have?
I think it's interesting. I think a lot of folks, once their parents start to age, when they usually call me, they don't even know what to ask. They're not even sure, because nobody's been there before. This is the first time, that they've had to look into this. And so most people just don't even know where to start. And so it is helpful to be able to give them my background, and to give them some of the things that they should ask about. As I was mentioning, they want to, sometimes when you're walking or touring a community, yes, like the larger ones, I've been in some beautiful communities that have, they just look like you've walked into a resort, and they have all these events on the calendar, and that's all fine. And I think that works for some, but you have to know to ask the other questions. For instance, how many caregivers are on the floor actually helping people throughout the day and different times of the day? Is there someone that, if my mom needs, help to walk to a dining room, or needs something that's out of the ordinary, is there going to be someone there that knows her history, knows her background, has worked with her before? You know, that's important, because sometimes when you're in a larger community, and you're in assisted living, they'll check on your loved ones, you know, maybe 2 times a day, 3 times a day, but they're not with them all the time. They're in their own place, in their own room or apartment, and so, you know, there's not a lot of information. Whereas in a home, our caregivers, we're checking on our residents every few minutes, where, you know, we can see them from where we're standing, where we're sitting. You know, if they're in their room, we're checking in, you know, come on out and hang out with us, and maybe we'll do a puzzle together or watch a movie together. But it's again, it's a different feel altogether for, you know, for these type of residential homes versus just your regular assisted living or, you know, or your memory care units. It is different. And so families need to kind of know what questions to ask.
So yeah, what would you say? Because again, you mentioned earlier how, you know, the larger facilities, right? There's those social activities like the bingo and the things like that. What does a typical day look like for your residents? Like, what kind of activities or things are they doing throughout the day?
Yeah, so we did recent. Well, I'm going to say recently, it was probably within the last year. We brought in an activities director, which in the smaller homes usually you don't have an activities director because there's not as many residents. We brought one in, and it was just a game changer. Because we realized in these smaller homes, you can't just put up on a calendar bingo at 10 o'clock like some of the larger communities do, because I would say like 2 of them like puzzles, maybe 2 of them would like bingo, another would prefer movies. It's just, we want to really kind of meet each resident where they're at. And because we're smaller homes, we have that ability to do that. And so now having like our activities director, she meets with each of the residents, meets with their families, and we try to find the activities that will most engage them. And we add those to the calendar. So it might be that a couple of people do an activity at 10 o'clock that's different than a couple of the other ones of our other residents. And so it's a little bit more customized for them. So some of our residents love to get up at 6:30 in the morning. Others don't want to get up till like 9:30. And so again, we're there to this is their home. So we're there to kind of meet them where they're at. We don't have that, you know, we have to have everybody in the dining room at a certain time and things have to be, you know, cleaned up and move on to the next activity. It's just a lot more, and I hate to go back to this, but it's more of a family feel. You know, if you want to get up at 8, great. If you don't want to and you want to sleep in and have breakfast later, then you have breakfast later. That's just, we're able to just meet people where they're at.
Since you guys create, it's such a, you know, such an important factor, such a big part of the small homes to create this family feel. Do you encourage, like, let's say for me, I want to come visit my father or my mother, or do you encourage that, or is it more disruptive because you're taking their new environment and reminding them of where they used to be? Like, is it more challenging for them when they see their family too often? Do you guys encourage that or discourage that?
No, we actually encourage family to come visit. Absolutely, that's always encouraged. Again, because not everybody fits just a regular mold, you will find some residents when they first move in, let's say they're a little bit more advanced in their dementia. There are some residents that will need, and we'll know after the first day or 2, they'll need a little bit more time to kind of adjust. And sometimes having that family member visit like every day or stay for, you know, 2-3 hours at a time, that first like couple of weeks, you know, every day, it could be disruptive. You know, I've seen it both ways. Since we're there watching and we're there with you know, that resident all the time, we can tell when it's going one way or the other. We're able to sit with the family, discuss it, and they may maybe not come and visit for a couple of days or maybe a little longer. You know, we work with each family and we work with each resident, you know, and in our smaller homes, because we have, you know, more caregivers there for each of the residents and we have just more time we're spending, we're able to figure that out and figure out what that resident needs in that moment in time. and be able to communicate that. That makes a difference when you have that personalized care. So.
Do you find that it's hard for families to give up that control? Like, they bring their loved one in and it's like they know what's best. But you guys are the experts and you're learning about that resident. You know whether they need more visits or less visits up front because they need time to adapt. Do you find a lot of pushback with families that it's hard for them to give that trust to you?
I have, some families do have that difficulty as far as letting go. But I'll tell you, I feel like when they talk with us and they see our homes and the way and how we work with our residents and that, I can most of the time I can tell they feel very comfortable. They trust us. They trust us, and so there's a lot of communication. In our homes, it's 24/7. If you have a question, if something's bothering you, you are always, you're going to reach somebody. Whether it's myself, whether it's my husband, whether it's our administrator, we have house managers. You feel like you're being heard, and you are. You're being heard, and that's the way it should be. And so we always encourage them to call, to talk, to meet with us. If some family members need more of that than others, then that's perfectly, that works great. We can do that as well.
Let me ask this. Let's talk about your homes. You mentioned you guys have, I believe, 3 homes. Let's talk about what types of homes they are and where they're located.
We have 2 assisted living homes in northern Fort Collins. Those are our 2, and one of them is called Monarch Greens Assisted Living, and the other is Terry Lake Assisted Living. And then we have Mearmont Memory Care, which is more central Fort Collins, and that one is a more of a secure memory care. And that one right now is running as a host home with 2 residents. We are right now in the process of expanding, and so hopefully we'll be able to bring in the full 10 to 12 residents here in the next year or so. We're hoping to expand that. It's been a long journey for when we first started Mearmont Memory Care, just different things that have happened, but it's a blessing to see it finally start to take hold, and we'll be able to expand.
What would you say, let's say somebody's watching right now, family members watching right now, and they're just at that point where, again, they're asking that question that you mentioned, like, where do I even start? Is it even the right time? They're just starting to see certain signs. What would you want them to know? What would you say to them? What should they be looking for? What should they be asking?
Yeah, that is a very good question, and I think it can be difficult sometimes to know when is the right time, and what might be the right time for some may not be for others. When your balance between living your own life is starting to get impacted while you're trying to help out your loved one, and I can feel that desperation sometimes in some of the folks that call, because they're, as much as they don't want to go to this, they realize that it's at the point that it's impacting their life. That by that point, I feel like you almost need to be a little more aware of how is it impacting your life and your family's life. For your loved one, I can tell you, once you have the beginnings of like dementia, and that they may not be able to recognize that it is time for them where they're needing more one-on-one. I wish I could tell you that there was a black and white kind of time to start this, but there really isn't. I think we know. I think instinctively we know when all of a sudden some of the questions from our loved ones start to change, and when you're starting to get more frequent phone calls if they don't live with you. Just reassurance. They're needing reassurance. They're needing, help with things that they used to be able to do every day, and now are struggling a bit. I think that's usually the beginnings of when you notice changes, and at that point in time, I would start having conversations then, with other family members, with your loved one, and maybe start looking around to see what's out there. The last thing you want to do is to wait too long, and then something happens that a decision is required immediately, and then you have to make a decision. You don't have the time to spend to ask these questions. Right. You have to move quickly, and that's not a good place to be.
Yeah, it's a scary time for families for sure.
It is. It
Because
is.
you don't know what until you're it's something that most of us don't think about until all of a sudden we find ourselves in a situation where we have to think about it. Then it's
Yeah.
like, well, where do you look? Where do you go?
Where do you go?
So if someone was interested in reaching out to you, like how do they find you, or how do they even see your homes? How does that work if they want to tour or ask
Yeah,
questions?
we do have, so our website is peacockcarehomes.com. Literally reach out to us at any time. We can do tours during the day. We can even accommodate tours in the evening if need be, as long as it's not too late where it's disturbing residents when they're getting ready for bed. But we can do, afternoons, we can do weekends. Again, we try to meet people where they're at, so we're open to do tours whenever.
That's great. Well, I think what you guys are doing is amazing. It's great work. It's helping families. I'm hoping to do the same thing. I like you said, I think when those questions do come up and people don't know where to go, that's kind of what I'm trying to help with here, is to give people a place to at least start asking the questions and see what's available. So I really appreciate you taking the time to kind of sit with me today and talk about your homes and share your story.
Thank you so much, and I'm glad that we've been able to do this, and I'm glad to see what you're doing, because people need a place to go to get those resources, to ask questions and know who to ask those questions to. So I think what you're doing is amazing as well. I'm glad you're doing it. So
I appreciate
thank
that.
you.
And I maybe we'll talk offline too. I'd like to maybe even tour your homes and maybe get to see them.
Anytime.
Maybe do a little video tour and share that with viewers as well, so they can kind of see firsthand before they tour them themselves. Maybe that'll be helpful.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Anytime.
great. Well,
Great.
again, Xioma, thank you, and I hope the information that people heard here today is helpful and helps to at least answer some initial questions for them. But I want
absolutely.
to thank you again.
Thank you. And I'm available anytime. Just give a call.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. Have a good night.
Okay. Bye-bye.